Hello and welcome everybody who joined to learn about embedded analytics with ABAP Cloud today. My name is Andreas Riehl. I'm development architect at the SAP ABAP platform in Walldorf. And with me today is Niloofar Flothkoetter from our product management, and together we will introduce you to embedded analytics with ABAP Cloud. Okay, let's put analytics in relation to ABAP Cloud. You are probably familiar with the diagram about what ABAP Cloud is already. And we want to just briefly highlight where analytics comes into the picture. So this will also help you to understand what the term embedded analytics is really about. So basically, it means that everything you need to build and deliver an analytical application is available in one and the same system. Okay. What do we have? We have the database, SAP HANA. So as you know, SAP HANA does have a column store and a row store. So it's capable of dealing with analytical applications as well as transactional applications. So that's a good starting point. Then we have the development model where we implement. So we are using ABAP CDS entities to build our analytical provider. This is also given in ABAP Cloud systems. And then we have, in terms of the UI services, the application, the protocol INA. INA is called Information Access and is a protocol that is specialized to deal with analytical clients because it can really work in a multi-dimensional way. Okay, and finally, we have ABAP development tools because we are developer and we will deal with the Eclipse-based ABAP tools. It's ADT tool set. Additionally, in the ABAP Cloud, we have also key user tools, but I don't want to talk about the key user tools today. Just to mention, they are there as well. Okay, and finally, we also have a consumer side that we want to see today. And this is, first of all, SAP Analytics Cloud as an application that can display analytical data in a multi-dimensional way. And then we also have Fiori UIs, the so-called multi-dimensional analysis, which is a UI that can also work in a multi-dimensional way based on the INA protocol. So I have to mention two things. First of all, SAP Analytics Cloud is not part of the ABAP Cloud system. It's a separate product, but still we want to mention it and we want to show it today as well, because it's really perfect for displaying analytical applications, like I said, in a multi-dimensional way. Then the second thing I have to mention as well, and this is why this is a little bit reddish here, we do have analytical Fiori UIs in ABAP Cloud. But as of today, our customers cannot yet build their own multi-dimensional analytical UIs with ABAP Cloud. But we are working on it. And I will today show you a sneak preview of how that will look like. So this is really first time in history today. Okay. So one last slide before we get to the real fun. And this is what are we up to today? What do we want to show you? And who will show it? And then what we will do. Okay. So I will build an analytical application with you. Here, that's that lower part, the domain-specific model, an analytical model, so-called star schema. It consists of a cube view, fact, that relates to different dimensions and then is finally consumed by an analytical query. So I will build that together with you, or show you how I built that, and we will have a look in detail what it does and how you can build it yourself. And then afterwards, Niloofar will take over and she will tell you how to expose that that model that we built with an ENA service, and then finally consume it in an analytical client. Niloofar will show, like I said, the SAC story, and I will, as part of the modeling session, also show the multi-dimensional analysis Fiori UI. Okay, then I think we can get started and have a look at the code. Okay. Before we start modeling the cube, which is kind of the heart of our analytical data model, we need to know a few basics. First of all, the data model itself. What are we building on top of? So we want to analyze flights, and therefore we are using the same underlying data sources that would also be used by a transactional web application for flights. That is the iFlights view. Yeah, so what are we up to? We want to analyze the occupation rate of flights today. Okay. Having that said, data model. Now, what do we need from that? So this is the iFlight view that we want to base upon. Okay. So what do we want to do with it? Analytics is about measuring things, quantifying, and being able to draw charts. So let's imagine we want to draw a very simple, basic bar chart. And to be able to draw such a chart, we first of all need to decide what we want to measure and what we want to put on the x-axis of our bar chart. We want to measure it, like I said, and this figure that we're now searching is therefore called the measure in analytical terms. Measure is, of course, somehow always numerical, and typical measures are amounts or quantities, but can also be counts of something. Like I said, we want to look at the occupation rate of our flights today. So therefore, we aim to display the maximum seats and the occupied seats. That we can do something. We'll also take the price into account, because the price is really a classical measure as well. Okay. Now, what else do we need? Numbers are great, but we need to put them into a perspective somehow. And this perspective is called dimension in the analytical terms. And a dimension is what we print on the y-axis of our imaginary bar chart. And as we are analyzing flights, we will just make it simple. We will just name our first, we'll take the first dimension, the connection, which is basically the flight number. So connection ID is the flight number. Okay, good. So now we know what we want to do, and then let's start doing it. The first thing we need to build is a cube view. Okay. By the way, speaking of ADT, I wanted to show you, you are probably very familiar with a project explorer. But if we are working with analytical data models, we've seen that before, it's kind of that star schema. We have a different explorer ready for you. And this is called the Relation Explorer. And you can start that if you navigate to an analytical entity, like here our cube, and then say show in Relation Explorer. I've opened that Relation Explorer already, and there you see the whole analytical model that I built already, starting here with the cube. And you will also see all the other parts that we are looking at later on. Dimensions, we mentioned that already, and the measures, we mentioned that as well. So let's have a look at the cube view now. Okay. All measures and dimensions are drawn together in this so-called cube view. Now let's think about why is it really called a cube? So let's imagine our chart again, that bar chart. And of course, we do not only want to analyze our flights later on or our occupation rate later on just by the flight number. That would not be working multidimensionally in an analytical application. We want to analyze it by different additional dimensions as well. And yeah, so, and this additional dimension, let's just think about one more second about the chart. If we add one more dimension to the chart, it becomes three-dimensional already. So we will have something at the z-axis, for example, the plane type. But now we come to the end of the three-dimensional world. So what do we do if we add a fourth or more dimension? So we can't display that in a chart anymore, three-dimensional way. So this is why our cube is, so first of all, 3 dimensions, we have a cube already. And when we add more, we call it such a thing, a multi-dimensional cube. Okay, in analytical terms again. Okay. And what we want to add now is then, see, for example, yeah, I mean, of course, the airline ID, we had that, the connection ID, flight date, and so on. In the cube, the dimensions and the measures are described in more detail than they are in the underlying data source. So the dimensions will have so-called foreign key associations. So what are these foreign key associations about? First of all, the airline ID is just an ID field, right? And if we want to look at the UI later on and want to see the airline, we do not only want to have the ID written there. Of course, we want to have the name of the airline as well, and maybe additional fields of that are mentioned in the airline. Therefore, we need that foreign key association to a so-called dimension view. We have that here, defined here, and we're using it here in that foreign key association. Let's just have a look at the dimension that we built as well. And you see that dimension has a text assigned to it, that object model text element that will then later on give us an American airline for AA or something like that. And we have additional attributes as well that we can then display, like, for example, the default currency, some stuff like that. Just wanted to mention that. So that's how you build a dimension. Back to the cube. Good. Foreign key associations, we did that. So now what else? Display attributes we talked about. Now let's think about what we really want to do with that view in the UI later on. As long as we display all the key fields of our flights, which is here the airline ID, connection ID, and a flight date, then each row in our UI will show exactly one flight. But as soon as we work in a multidimensional way and change the layout, then the number of rows will change accordingly. And the measures that we introduced, they will have to be recalculated. We call it, they will be aggregated. And this is also something that the analytical engine is doing for us. And the analytical engine really supports different aggregation levels, sums, and so on. We will see that later on in the UI. And yeah. Right. What I wanted to say is aggregation. Each field that we want to aggregate by has to be in the cube view, right? So let's think about analyzing our flights again. Seems like so we could use some additional fields in our cube that are not part of it already. Like I said, we wanted to have the airline in there, connection in there, plane type. We do have that already, but we could also aggregate our occupancy rate by the starting airport. And the starting airport from, is not in our flights. So again, we have to use an additional view. And this time, we are not only using that additional view as a foreign key association here for our airport from field, but we are also having an association to the connection, which is again another view. And from the connection, we are getting that airport from and the airport to field. Okay. What else do we have? What could we aggregate by? And what's not in our cube yet? For example, we could analyze the flight by the distance. And well, the distance are a very, different, of course. Therefore, I want to just differentiate between long distance and short distance flights. But this is not as such as a dimension in our flights, right? So what I'm doing here is a calculation. Be aware such calculations that you then later on want to use to be aggregated by can be expensive. So that could be a potential performance problem if you do such things, but nevertheless, it's possible. And of course, that makes a difference with the amount of data that that is really behind there. So you will later on see this is not a problem at all for the analytical engine here with our amount of data. Okay, so I'm just again drawing the distance from the connection, and then I'm just looking, is it over 1,000 kilometers? Then I call it a long distance, and otherwise I call it a short distance flight. Good. What else can we use as dimensions? We do already have the flight date in here, but like I said, everything we want to aggregate by has to be in the cube. So this is the flight date itself. It's just the date. If we want to aggregate by, let's say, the month or the quarter or the calendar year, we have to put these dimensions as well here in our cube. Okay, and I did that. I associated the flight date and picked the year month from it, year quarter, and calendar year. Giving it a label, and then also tell the analytics engine that, first of all, this is related to a date. And I also tell the engine where it's derived from. It's derived from the flight date itself. So that enables the OLAP really, also the analytical engine, to see the reference. And this is especially important if we have multiple dates in the same model, so that the engine can differentiate. Good. That was it regarding to the aggregation. Okay. One more thing. Yeah, measures. With the measure, we then mention the aggregation, right? So measures are also part of the cube, and then we tell the engine how the measure shall be aggregated when it's aggregated. So the seats, I want to sum them up, and the price, I want to have a max price. And yeah, that's it. Good. Now let's have a look at the query. So what we did with the analytical cube is that we defined the capabilities of our analytical model. And with the query, we want to, like the name says, query that model. And the query is much closer to the UI. It's kind of a consumption view, and it really tells already how the UI is looking like when you call the application the first time. Okay, talking about UI, we'll have annotations like the analytics details query axis that tells us where the airline will turn up on the UI. It will be on the rows, and we do not want to see any subtotals on the airline ID. Usually, dimensions are put on the rows, and the measures are put on the columns. Okay, so I'm doing this for airline ID, connection ID, and so on in the same way. So all the dimensions. Also for the flight type, even though this is calculated just in the same way. Then we come to the price. So the price is something special again. The price, like we know, has a currency. And if we aggregate a price that can have different currencies depending on the flight, it could be Singapore dollars, euro, dollars, or whatever. So we can't just sum them up from the value. So they have to be converted. And if we convert them and sum them up, of course, then the currency itself is not either euro or dollar again. So it could be depending on the aggregation. It could be either euro or dollar, and this is why we introduce a virtual field here. And also, this is something that the analytical engine is then doing for us. It's deriving the correct unit. Good. Then maximum seats and occupied seats. I don't want to display them at all, basically. Maybe I should have removed them there. But now I want to really do the calculation of the occupation rate. And this is also, again, important. So we have done a calculation before, and we've done that calculation in the cube. That was the calculation if it's a long distance or short distance flight. And now this calculation here about the occupation rate, we are not doing in the cube, but we're doing it in the query. Why is that? The thing is, every calculation that you want to do before the aggregation has to happen in the cube, and every aggregation that you want to happen after the aggregation is going to be happening here in the query. Okay. We have even a percentage unit here that we are referencing. This is also quite new capability. And then we're just doing the calculation of the occupation rate. Okay, that's it. We now managed to build an analytical model. Now, let's have a look how that looks like in the UI. Of course, I talked too long and the UI is gone. Okay, so this is exactly a one-to-one display of the query that we just talked through, right? So we had the airline ID, we had the flight number and the flight date in the rows, and we had the price, capacity, seats, and all the measures in the columns. By the way, you cannot put one measure to the column and the other to the row. So this is not possible. Measures are always taken as one block. Okay. And we do not have an aggregation happening because we have all the key fields. We have the airline ID, flight number, flight date. So this is not aggregated. As you can also see, we've introduced the totals here. That is always 1. But now we want to see the magic happening. And therefore, we want to work in a multidimensional way. First of all, let's concentrate on the occupation rate only. And then let's really do the aggregation. Let's say we do not want to have the flight date at all in here. But we want to have the flight month. And now we see, we define that in the query that with the month, I can switch back for you, in the month, year month, we want the totals to show. And once we switch the months on, the totals automatically show up here and the aggregation is happening in a correct way. What we also have talked to is the display attributes that come from the dimensions as well. Let's see that, for example, for the destination airport, we have that dimension. And we can, let's say, add the city to the airport as well. And we could also say that we want not to see the ID, but really the description, name of the airport, stuff like that. Okay, and yes, now you could even swap the axis, so you could even put dimensions in the rows and so on. So now really begins the whole working multi-dimensionally thing. Good. I mean, that's about it. You've now seen how to build an analytical model and how it looks in UI. You can do much more with it, but I think I will just hand over to Niloofar because she will concentrate much more on the UI features than I was. Okay, thank you. And over to you, Niloofar.
Thank you, Andreas. So hello, everyone. My name is Niloofar Flothkoetter, and I'm a product management team member in Walldorf. I'm going to show you today how you continue preparing your data model, what Andreas already showed you, and use it in the SAP Analytics Cloud to create a story, visualize your data. For that, we need 3 main steps. At the first, we need some preparation on ADT, and then we need to connect our BTP system with SAC. With SAC, I mean SAP Analytics Cloud. And of course, the other way from our SAC with the ABAP system. And at the end, I will show you how you can create some stories based on your query. So I can just share my screen. So, right. Andreas showed you how you can create your dimensions Q1 query, and we just begin with define a service definition. With right click on your query, you can just create a new service definition. You use a service definition to define which data is to be exposed as a business service using one or more business service bindings. And if you just enter some name and description and click next and finish, you will have some service definition like this. And you can see that your query is allowed to be exposed. The next step is to create an ENA UI service binding. For that, we just right click on our service definition and choose a new service binding. And again, you need a name and description here. And here as binding type, you need this ENA UI. The service binding is actually used to bind a service definition to a communication protocol. And in our case here, this communication protocol is information access or ENA protocol. So I can just open it. Yeah, and show you that our service definition is linked in this binding. So the next step will be create an IAM app. And for this one, you just need to right click your package and create a new IAM app. So you can just add your name and description again, and here you can see that it will be external app. And if you've done it, you can see that it will be like here. So we need to assign our service binding in this application. So we just go to services and import our service binding name as a service type ENA in this one. And as you can see, I just added before. And you need to publish it locally. So the next step will be to create business catalog. To create a business catalog, you can just right-click under Cloud Identity and Access Management and create a new business catalog. And here you are. You can just add your IAM app here in this catalog. So now we need to add our business catalog in a business role. So we just open our Fiori Launchpad again. Just a moment. Prepare this. So under maintain business roles, you can just create a new business role, as I did it before, and assign this business catalog in this role. And actually, after we assign this business catalog catalog in this role, we will assign this role to our user. So our user will have access to our data. So just open the business role and business user. In maintain business user, you can just open your user and assign the role in this user. So I am the user and I am able to access my data from this system. So the first main step is done. The second main step is to create a connection between our ABAP system and SAC system. For this one, we need to create a communication system. So in this communication system, you can just put your host name, and this host name is actually your link from your SAC, and just save it and create a communication arrangement to done the connection. So we need a communication arrangement with this SAP Analytics Cloud integration scenario. We assign the communication system in that, and this tenant ID you can find as well under your SAC application. So the connection is done one way to SAC, and we need to done the connection the other way. For example, for this one, for this goal, we go to the our SAC and open our connections. With clicking on plus, you can just add one connection, and that is the connection as I prepared before. As you can see, that will be a live connection. And a connection type is direct, and the host should be actually the link of your BTP system or ABAP system in this one. And yeah, the connection is done. So we are now in our third main step, and it will be to create a model. Models transform your raw data into useful information that can then be used to create a dynamic visualization. So since we use this data live data model, we can create a model based on our query. So we just click on that and use our connection, that was this one, and we use our query as our query as our source, data source. Here you are. We can see all of our measures, all of our dimensions, which Andreas prepared in the query. So we need to save this dimension, new model, div 23, and new model as description. Just save it. So, and we can just go to stories. A story is actually a presentation style document that uses various elements like charts or tables or images to visual your data. So for that one, you can just use all of these templates here, which are ready for you to use. I just choose one dashboard. You can just close it to have more screen. So you can choose freely your chart or table, or change your chart view and something like that. And now we can just define our model. Yep. Yep. So I want to choose some measures and some dimensions for this chart. So I can just click on measure, and for example, we just begin with something easy like flight price, and we can add some dimensions like flight date or flight month, and you can see that your flight price in different dates are done, are there. Or we can just insert another chart like a donut chart, and we can just occupy seats. And as a dimension, we use airline ID. So it's like this. And so this example was actually with just one query. The other thing is you can just have more than one query here, and you can define multiple models here, and you can switch between your models to create a story here. It is possible. So, as I said, there is really different options to create your, just a moment, to create your story, to analyze your story. And if you save your story, you can use story demo. So you can see all of your stories which you built, and actually you are able to share this story with other team members, or you can just push it to a catalog and publish it for some special persons to see your analytics data. So yeah, at the end, we have a GitHub repository and, of course, a nice tutorial, what you can use to create your story and your data modeling from the scratch to the end. I think both of the links should be in your slides, Andreas, right? We cannot hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to find the right button. Not a pro, sorry. The links will then be in a slide later on, definitely, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, to hearing us.
Thanks, Niloofar. We also have 2 questions, I think, in the chat. Mamiki posted them to me. First question from Louis is it possible to handle hierarchies inside dimension in ABAP CDS? And yes, and much more. This is possible. Of course, I did not show all the capabilities here. Just to briefly maybe show that. A second, sharing my screen again. Okay, so I just wanted to briefly show that. So hierarchies, can you see it? I hope so, yeah. Hierarchies are also modeled in CDS, and I'm showing this here, also here in that beautiful Relation Explorer
Andreas,
that we
sorry,
have.
I cannot see your screen.
Okay.
Are you sharing anything?
Yes, I think so. Oh, I think, just a second, you're right. Sorry, I'm really not desktop 2, and now I have to press share. Sorry,
No,
sorry. Can you see it now? Okay, sorry. Like I said, I'm again here in that beautiful Relation Explorer, and I opened a different analytical model that has a hierarchy defined. And you can see here that defining hierarchies is done in CDS as well. And then you can define hierarchy. Hierarchy has a couple of CDS views. Here, this hierarchy is the business partner hierarchy, consisting of the city and the country. And yeah, it's defined in CDS. So this is possible. That was the first question. And the second question is, for embedded analytics, can we get away with a SQL view and just create an entity? Or do we absolutely need to create a view? So the thing is, as soon as we want to work with the ENA protocol, we have to at least define a query view with the contract analytical query. This can then talk ENA, and it has to be based on a cube underneath, and this really has also to have this cube annotation. So this is a special view as well that you have to create to work in a multidimensional way. But underneath, you can of course select from a different CDS view data model as well. Usually you would also build your own model there. Yeah, so views can be reused, yes, but yeah, be cautious that you do not model too complex just to have reuse, I would say. That would be my advice. And a SQL view cannot be directly used to do multidimensional analytics. That were the two questions. Okay. Then I would say, Niloofar, do you have anything to add?
No.
We will share the we will share the presentation later on, make that available. And we will also have in November a hands-on tutorial that gives you the possibility to really get your hands dirty yourself and also build an analytical model based on Flight. We will prepare that with an additional GitHub repository. So I would say stay tuned, and I hope to see you at latest on the TechEd session then. So we also have additional cloud sessions that are also referenced here in the shared PowerPoint later on. Okay, thank you everybody. I think we can close the session. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas. Thank you, anybody.